Now that I have my panel sitting the right way around, why don't we take a quick walkthrough and see what we got. So I figured I'd walk you through some of the standard operation on the Garmin G3X and kind of how I got it set up in my panel. In here you can see it's actually starting up. This ADAHRS align is happening right now. So the way I did it is my ADAHRS is actually mounted on the back of my G3X Touch. Garmin doesn't necessarily recommend that, but for me it works really well. The big thing is you don't want it to be moving, so you need to make sure it's stable. Now I'm going to have my panel 2 millimeters thick, so that really shouldn't be much of an issue, right, as I go through this. But this is basically starting up now as if I turned my master on. This is the startup screen you get. You'll see over here you've got the various databases and the versions, or the date and the dates. So it tells you when they expire. Right now, the only ones I update are the VFR one, which is free from Garmin, and also the obstacle database. Other than that, I don't update anything until I get it actually set up and into plane. And then you've got your standard, you know, what would be normally your 6-pack over here, but you get the gist of kind of how it starts up. You've got to acknowledge it. So once I hit acknowledge it, now I've got my main display up and running. There's a couple of errors going on, but before I adjust those, one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit menu, and I'm going to hit menu again. And what I can do in here is I can go into my backlight intensity, and right now it's on the photo cell. Just to make this video a little better, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch that to manual, and I'm going to turn that way up so everybody can see it nicely. Okay. And so hopefully this is going to make it a lot easier for you to see this as I do the video. But that's it. And I'll walk you through that menu there in a minute. But there's what it looks like. Over here on the left side, you can see I'm showing my fuel, PSI, my volts. The volts M is the volts coming from my battery. This would normally show you my battery. Obviously on here I don't really have the battery connected. I've actually got it to a little tiny battery that I'm using for the moment, but it gives you the basic understanding of it. And I have a trigger on it so that, or sorry, an alarm on it so that if its voltage starts dropping, I'll see it and be able to tell. Down below it, I have volts E, which is my essential bus or my backup bus. Right now it's showing 0 because it's not turned on. And so I'll turn that on in a minute, but it'll give you an idea. And then down here, I have the CO2. In here, I have a CO2 sensor. It's showing a 4 right now, but basically I've got it set up as an alarm so that if it goes above a certain level, it'll go yellow and then it'll go red. Once I have it all set up, it'll look a little different from this. This is my main panel right now. Obviously, when I get it going in the plane, I'll have a secondary panel on the right over in this spot over here with the autopilot head above it. This would be where I show my maps and my engine analysis and stuff like that. So that's where that would be. This over here would be my main display for, you know, attitude and everything else. But now that it's started up, you know, and it's looking pretty good, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get rid of my ECS fail, my Volt Ease fail. That's because, like I said, it's not turned on. So I'm going to go over here. I've got a switch for it. I flip this switch on. And when I do, you can see my Volt E climbed up here. It's 12.8, 12.9, 13, and the alarm goes out. So now it's got my backup voltage up and running and operating. Okay. The other thing I'll do is I'm going to go back to this. If you touch this, it'll bring up this sub menu if you'd like. In here, I use a VPX. My VPX shows me kind of a snapshot of my breakers and the power being used by the system. Right now you can see it's 0.7 amps being drawn through the VPX. The battery's sitting at 12.9 volts. And I've got my main alternator on, and the aux alternator is off. And that is controlled actually by a switch I have over here. So if I flip this switch up, you'll see it'll go to my aux alternator. And if I switch it back down, it'll go back to my main or primary one. You can also do it here on the display. If you wanted to, you can actually go down here and change it. So here, I change it over, and you notice I have it programmed so you can't have both of them engaged at the same time. So as soon as I do that, it'll turn the other off. So if I go back to primary, it'll switch over. And that just makes it easier so that if you have a switch malfunction, if you needed to, you can just use the display and configure that. The other thing that I've got turned off right now is this backup power. So I also have a breaker configured into VPX that is used to charge up my backup battery. So if I turn that on, you'll see the voltage jump or current draw jumps. It brings my battery down because again, it's not really that powerful. So it'll bring it down for a moment until it charges up my backup battery. And once it does that, and you'll see here that the current draw that's going to the backup battery is 3.8 amps, and you'll see that kind of tick down in a minute. And you can see over my overall VPX is now 5.8. That's really because of that, right? So we'll just give it a second, and we'll see if it comes back. And because it's drawing my battery down, you'll also see here it's gone yellow, indicating it's an alarm because it's below the threshold that I had. And now you can see the backup battery power drain is coming down, and you'll see this one come back up because I've got it on a charger. But that's pretty cool. You can scroll down through, all of the different breakers I've got configured, and you can actually control them in here or not. The ones that I do have in here that are of interest, again, not set up yet, right? But I have Mag 1 power and Mag 2 power. In my configuration, I'm going to use pmags, and those pmags have both the ability to ground them out to shut down each of the mags individually, but also the mags have an internal generator. So it'll actually generate its own voltage should it lose power from the airplane. So what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to test that during your run-up. I didn't put a switch on my panel for it. Instead, I would just go in here and tap these, and I can turn them on or off. And that way I can test them, make sure they're good. But by default, these will always be on. So just showing that. And then other than that, you can see my main display is on. My starter, now this one's also interesting. You'll see in here, it's checked. So it says the starter's on, but in reality, if we look down a little bit here, you'll see that my starter switch is not lit up. So I have a push button start, there's no key. And one of the things I wanted to make sure is as I'm, as you get in the plane, you turn on your master, and you're gonna do your flaps, you're gonna do your walk around, everything else, accidentally hit the start engine and it'll turn the prop. Well, I didn't want that. So what I've done is I've configured it, I actually wired it, I guess, so that both of my mags have to be turned on. So that's my left mag, you turn it on this way, and this switch is, you've got to pull it out to move it. And then same with this one, so you can't just accidentally turn it on. And then if I flip this one up, you'll notice down here now it's lit up, and now you can press it and it will crank the engine for you. Either one of these being off disables it. Just a bit of a safety feature so that, trying as much as possible, because I don't have a key to prevent any kind of issue. This is where my G5 would be, obviously, so I've walked through this. And then down below, I have my switches for my battery and so on. And that's it for that. The other thing over here that I will show is this page displays the engine information. Again, it would be on the other display, but you can go in here and you can do things like lean assist. You can normalize them all. I don't have any data in here, so it's not pulling anything, but just some of the basic stuff. And then also you can flip down here through the various pages So because I don't have my GTX 45R plugged in, there's no traffic data, but it would display it here. It shows the terrain in the area. It shows the weather. If I had it coming in again, same thing. You can program in your flight plan, and I'll do that in a minute. It shows you, you know, your waypoints, your chart if you have charts configured, and then your map itself. Right now, I've got this set up so that it's plugged into my non-WAS GPS, which is for this display. So I'll actually have two GPSs on my plane. One will be a WAS GPS for the Garmin 650, and then the other one will be non-WAS to power this up. So if you needed it, it'll work for VFR. It's not great for IFR or anything like that, but it works really well for that. Okay. And then just keep going around here a little bit. You'll see it says ECS failed, which I'll show you in a second. And then it says set baro. Again, because I've just started it up, it wants me to set my barometer. So if I touch it here, and that's what's nice about it, you can go program it, 29.99. I don't know what it is right now. It's clearly not that. So let's put in 30.25. So pretty good high pressure system. Ooh, it's even higher than that. So it's, let's go 30. So there you go. So that's what that does. It sets the baro. What else can I gotta get rid of my messages here. So it just shows me ADAHRS is not receiving my magnetometer data because I don't have it plugged in. I'm not getting the GPS navigator data through RS-232, and it's just telling me it's using the internal flight plan. So nothing too exciting there, right? And let me go get this baro a little more. 30, 35. And wow, it's, I guess it's minus 60, it's closer. So let's go 30, 40. Okay. So that's it for that piece. That's gone out into the baro, and the ECS fail. That's what I was saying earlier, is because it doesn't have the magnetometer, that will stay on, and that's just one of the configuration things I have in here. You can configure this display any way you want. I've got, right now, it shows traffic over here, but you can go change that. Down on the bottom, you can have timers, your outside air temperature, local time, any of the messages. GPS tells me I got no data. Also, you control, you have your flaps, your heading bug, and the heading bug you can tap and bring it up, or you can actually adjust it if you've got it set up to do so. You'll notice I'm adjusting it with this, and then my other knob actually adjusts my altitude or target altitude if you'd like, and I'll show you why that'll go away in the future as well, but that shows you how you do that. Again, course, you can do the same with it. I've got to go just enable it here in a second, but just kind of gives you an idea. And then up here, if I had the radios connected, you would actually be able to see, this would bring up my comms, and you'd be able to go and just tap it, and it'll bring up the comm page, and then you can go and put in radio frequencies. You can do things like automatically transfer. So if I go back in here to this menu, I'm going to add a waypoint for a moment. KDYL, so Doylestown. Okay. And if I click on Doylestown and I look at waypoint info, in here you can see the frequencies. So if I had the radio connected, it would actually allow me to just do that. You can see the runways, the pattern, traffic pattern. Again, if I had the GTX 45R, I'd see FSB weather. I'd be able to see NOTAMs and things like that. So, and hit the charts if I loaded them up. Okay, so now that I have it up and running, basically, now I've just started it up. One of the things I have to do is down here, I have to turn my avionics on. Again, like I mentioned earlier, if I go here, oh, let me go this way. If I go to my VPX, I have two ways to do this. Again, it's just to see what makes it easier. I have my Avionics button configured so that it turns on a number of things. It turns on my GMA 245. It allows me to power my GMC 507. It powers my GTR 20. It basically powers up anything with the main Avionics. It would also power up my Garmin 650 and so on. But if I power that up right now, in here, you're gonna see, notice it just came on, that came on, that came on. So all of these things just powered up, okay? Because I don't have anything connected, there's not really much to see there with it, but it just shows you some of the things. Now you'll see that I've got a course arrow, so I can actually do that because the Avionics has been powered up. In addition, now you can see my active flight plan. So, you know, some new things have come up. And then also over here, and if I can get both of these in here at the same time, what you will see is this is not powered yet. So it doesn't do anything. The altitude select, the heading bug, none of that works. But if I go down here and turn on my autopilot, it's lit up. Now my autopilot's on. It's going through its self-test. And in a minute, what you'll see here is you'll see some statuses come up for the autopilot. Okay, perfect. So now it's on. Now I can set my heading bug. If you look here, you can see the heading bug is controlled by this knob up here. And then over on the little further over here, this will actually set my target altitude. So once I have that powered up, I really don't need to use the other buttons in here for that. So you can reconfigure these for something else if you wanted to. Right now, flight director is not on. So again, over here, if I press the flight director button, what you'll see here is now you have a magenta arrow. It's showing you the flight director. By default, it comes up with straight and level flight. And it's also got the GPS tracking. So now what I can do is I can do things like, okay, so now I'm gonna go and tell it to do my vertical speed. I'm gonna tell it to go up at 500 feet per minute. And you'll see that will actually change. And now it shows me by pitch up attitude that it thinks I need to get that 500 feet per minute. It also shows you the status over here of the, I'll focus on the other one for a minute, but you can see the status. Altitude select, let me not show that one for a second. Altitude select, you've got roll, so it's in roll mode, and it's vertical speed. Roll just means it's gonna hold the attitude you've got. What I can do now is if I hit nav, it shows it's switched over to GPS. Now it's actually tracking the GPS, and you'll see now it wants the plane to bank, which it won't do because obviously it's not connected. But it just kind of shows you how it works and you know, some of the things you can do. And then of course with this particular one, the 507, and the reason I got this one is I have yaw damper as well. So I'm gonna put in a yaw servo, and then I have an aileron and a pitch servo. So that way I can do any one of them. And then also over here, if I go and hit heading mode, it'll switch over to heading mode down here. Or maybe not. Heading mode. Oh, because I don't have any heading input, it won't switch, sorry. Yeah, that's right. So you have to have the heading, so my magnetometer not being connected. Okay. And now I've got additional draw on that little battery, so you'll see like my volt M has dropped just because it's a little more than that that little battery can do. It's just a motorcycle battery, but gives you some of the basics. The other thing you can do on here is almost everything is touchscreen. So in here, I could use the head over here, or I can actually go into the menu and do it as well. So if I wanted to, I could turn off the nav, I can turn it back on. I can actually hit my altitude, so it holds it at the altitude that I'm at. I can do my vertical speed. I can go nose up, and I can set my feet per minute. Yeah, so basically you can do everything in here. And the ones that are grayed out are because I don't have any of the servos. One of the things that you could do is if you had all the servos, you'd have stability control, program. So it could set it so that you can't bank beyond a certain amount. You can't do pitch up, pitch down above a certain levels. You can control things like airspeed. It's pretty slick, and it has approach mode and so on. But that's it. What else? Again, in here there is a menu, so you can do the menu in here. Same thing. If you didn't want to have a radio head, you could actually control it in here. So you could actually click on these and they'll bring up a menu where you can control your radios, you can control your nav, you can control the transponder. So all of these are in here because I've got them configured. I just don't have them set up yet. Or sorry, I don't have them connected right yet. If I did, you'd be able to see these. And then you've got some tools, but the main thing is some setups. You can go in here, you can change how your display is set up, whether you want split screen or not. You can also adjust the sound, the units, position. The connects is pretty slick. Where do you want to get your FISB source from? Also, it has Bluetooth. So I have it configured so that with the Bluetooth, it'll talk to my tablet, it'll talk to my headset. So I can automatically load flight plans in. You can set up alarms. You can program your PFD. Do you want the tapes or would you rather round gauges? So there you go. Now you can have round gauges if you'd prefer. I don't know that anyone do that. You can decide how you want your wind vector. Do you want speed and direction, or do you want heading and crosswind? Do you want to show your standard rate terms, your HSI orientation, the scale that you want? So lots and lots of things in here that you can actually configure as you go through it. So that's that one. And then for most of it, like, you have the same, right? What format you want for your position. But really, I would say as you get it set up, you just need to go in and check each one of these out and configure them. And especially when it comes to the servos, I think that's something you have to do what you got set up in here as well. Alerts for airspaces. Do you want alerts? So I've got one for restricted. So if I try and fly into a restricted airspace, but just some of the things you can do in here. Okay. I think that's about it. And hopefully you find it useful. In my next video, I think what I will do is I'll actually go through the configuration menu and show you how that works. But that will do it for this one.